okay, well, great. We just saved another 15 grand because we don't need to mix in Dolby Atmos. We can deliver 5.1.
This is Truly Independent, a show that demystifies the indie film journey by documenting the process of releasing independent films in theaters. Each week, Garrett, Batty, and I, Darren Smith, will update you on our journey, bringing guests to share their insights into the process and answer your questions.
Hello, Darren.
Hey,
how
man.
are you?
Dude, I'm so good. I'm excited to be here. We're recording a podcast. It's my favorite thing every week. I love it.
Well, welcome to our listeners. Welcome to Truly Independent. We have another exciting episode for you all. We're going to talk about deliverables. We're going to talk about box office, and we're just going to give an update on how things are going with our own projects. So thank you once again for tuning in and for watching and for sharing. And thank you for your questions and comments. Those are really, they help us know what to talk about.
Yeah, 100%. It's been nice to have a little bit more time to focus on promoting this show every week and getting feedback and seeing people's responses. Like, there are people, not just in the United States, like worldwide audience that are listening to this religiously every week. And I get DMs about, hey, I listened to that episode. Hey, that was a great one. And there's like the people we want listening to the show, like indie filmmakers who are trying to do the same stuff we're doing. We're hitting it. So it's so fun. I love this stuff.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun. And I feel like it's a community we're all listening and learning together and then putting it into practice. And it's fun to be able to do that now, having released several movies and now in development on several. So yeah, it's fun to be able to share that experience with our listeners. So thank you. That being said, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Why are we talking about deliverables when we're also like, this season is about development and financing and the early stages? So what the heck, man? Why are you throwing us a curveball and talking about stuff that happens at the end?
Well, two reasons. One, part of that's a little selfish because that's what I've been doing now for the past couple of weeks is working on deliverables for Faith of Angels, which is going out to their streaming sites. But one of the great things that enables us to be able to deliver kind of consistently and efficiently is the work that was done in development on deliverables, planning for having to distribute. I know in my first film that I made, you get so excited and you make the movie and you scramble all together, and then the distributor says, great, we'd love to pick this movie up and put it out at the time on DVD. And then they send over a document with about 30 items that you need. And I didn't know where any of that stuff was. I hadn't prepared or planned or anything. And I think, boy, a lot of this, if I would have taken care of it in development and pre-production, then this would be a streamlined process. So hopefully talking about deliverables now can help our listeners know that, hey, we want to be in the mindset of we're developing a project for delivery, not just to create a movie, but to successfully deliver it into the market.
Yeah. Well, this is timely as well because I'm getting questions. I can think of two people in the last 2 weeks that have either called me or saw me at a festival and said, hey, I have a question about this. And one was about life rights. Like, hey, I'm trying to tell the story of my, great grandma from 100 years ago. And I was like, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm very hesitant to give you any sort of advice on this stuff because I don't know how things change. I don't know what new laws have been passed. I'm not staying current on those things. So yeah, rights, chain of title. Like, I hope we're talking about that today. And then music rights is another one that came up of a short film maker that was asking about, hey, I'm putting this short film into festivals. Do I need to get licensing? Do I need to pay fees in order to do it? And I was like, here's my take, but talk to a lawyer. So maybe, I don't know if it's on your list of things to talk about, but I think inherent in all of it is like, you want the right people looking at these things, these different deliverables and going, yes, you're good. Yes, you're good. Right. Instead of being like, yeah, I think I'm good.
Sure. Yeah. And there's that balance because again, we're independent filmmakers. That's the whole nature. We're saying a lot of this stuff, we're bootstrapping. We don't have money to reach out and talk to a lawyer or, even to hire other people to help us. We don't have a music supervisor budget or, a contracts or even an E&O budget. But these are the things that maybe we're going to talk about how, where to put your money, like where it is valuable, and say yes, no, E&O is required and is worth the cost. So that type of thing. So the first thing I wanted to get into is you want to just understand the required deliverables list. Like each distributor, we're distributing Faith of Angels. It was out in theaters in September, October, November, and now we're delivering it to different streaming sites. And each distributor has their own specific requirements for deliverables. So these include video and audio files, their legal documents and marketing materials, and they're all of varying technical specs. So you want to request early on from those distributors that you're either working with or pitching to their list of deliverables. Just get that early on, make it a part of your development package, and so that you can start to budget for those items that you're going to need to deliver.
Yeah, basically everything that you capture, I'll use that word, everything that you bring into your business for the film is going to then be handed off at some point to a distributor or sales agent or a streamer or whatever it might be. And so whether that's audio or video or paperwork or contracts or agreements or insurance documents, like anything that you create, anything that you capture, you need to make sure that you understand how it's going to be handed off at the end.
And I think one of the best ways to do that is, I mean, there's as you get lots of people working on the project, most people will set up a Dropbox or a Drive or some sort of standard place where everybody can start putting their development files, whether it's your script or your breakdowns or your contracts, your life rights and legal documents, or pre-marketing materials. And so you'll start to build that out. And I usually take that list of deliverables that the distributor gives us, and I build a folder for each item and put a red dot by each folder. And then as I fill it, change that red to green, and so that you have it. It's a great way to stay organized. And when second and third and fourth distributors, international or direct to DVD or whatever it is, distributors come in, you're not trying to track all that stuff down again. You can just take all those folders, copy them onto a new hard drive, and send it out. So it's a great way to do that.
Yeah, saves you a bunch of time.
Yeah. Okay. Another thing is on your deliverables list. This is number 2. There's 10 items we're going to talk about. Number 2, master the delivery formats. So you're going to look at these deliverables in the lists, and they often include different formats. You get your ProRes, 422, HQ, 4444. For theaters, you got your DCP or a broadcast-ready version. So, and then in addition to the video, you've got the audio. You got your 5.1 or your 7.1 or stereo mixes, M&Es and M&E splits and stems and like all of these things. And it's all just kind of music to my ears, but it's like, oh, this is exciting stuff. But it's tedious and very time consuming. And so make sure, one of our deliverables, our distributor says, here's a deliverable list and everything needs to be shot at, whatever, at this aspect ratio and this resolution. And gosh, if we hadn't have been aware of that and really made an informed decision on which camera we're going to use and how we're going to shoot it, you get to the end of it and they say, hey, we want your movie, and say, oh, well, we don't qualify for your streaming network because we shot on such and such format. So that'd be a mistake. So pay attention to your delivery formats.
Yeah, well, this is maybe an important point to say. If you don't know this stuff, find the person who does, right? Like this is great. As soon as you get into aspect ratios and splits and all the different things you just talked about, this is like the great time for a post-production supervisor or your audio post supervisor, your post-production sound mixer, whoever you have, and engage them early on to tell them this is what we're shooting for. And I've heard horror stories of people who filmed with the camera that they owned or filmed with the camera that they thought was amazing and the best one on the market, only to realize that it doesn't fit the deliverable, like the approved camera list on Netflix or HBO or NBC. And they went, oh, shoot, we have this whole thing and we can't distribute it because it doesn't fit their format restrictions. And you're just like, oh man. So this is why I think we're talking about it now, because in the early conversations, maybe this is after you've been greenlit and you're saying, we have the money, we're making this movie. Let's get our department heads together. Let's get our cinematographer. Let's get our VFX people. Let's get our post-production people and say, this is what we're doing. Here's our deliverables that we're aiming for, so that everybody knows what's the aspect ratio, what's the frame rate, what's the audio rate, what is the deliverable that we're going to need to have. Because if you get to the end and you tell a audio post-production sound supervisor and they mixed a 5.1, you're like, oh, well, we need a 7.1 or 11.1 or a Dolby Atmos. Guess what? You just added another 25 grand to your budget, because they're going to take another month to deliver that and create that for you. So really need to have that conversation early on.
And it can work in your favor, as far as an independent film budget, you're often trying to figure out where to save money, and it can work in your favor and saying, look, we're delivering, what are your deliverables? And this studio is requesting a 5.1. It's like, okay, well, great. We just saved another 15 grand because we don't need to mix in Dolby Atmos. We can deliver 5.1. And so it keeps everybody on the same page. You don't want to over produce your movie. But that brings up the third point, which is quality control. A lot of distributors, they require a QC pass from like an outside source, so that to make sure that your film meets technical specs. So you're going to want to work with, if you've got your post supervisor, work with a lab or the QC professional. You can even talk to your distributor and say, great, we're ready to deliver the movie. Who do you recommend that we go to for QC? And there's usually a fee with that. They're happy to charge you to QC your movie, but it is part of something that needs to be done for a deliverable. So you want to pay attention to that and make sure that that item in your budget stays protected.
Yeah, well, those are important things too, because when I was doing post sound, if you were like 0.1 decibel off of the dial norm restrictions or the requirements, they'd send it back and be like, nope, doesn't work. And you have different mixes for broadcast than you do for streaming, than you do for theater, and they all have different requirements. And so you're doing multiple mixes. And so when you're budgeting those things out, being able to tell your post team, whether it's your colorist, whether it's your editor, whether it's your sound people, to say, hey, here's all the listed deliverables, so that they can give you a fair quote up front for like, we're going to do multiple mixes. We're going to do multiple sets of deliverables. And even like you were talking about earlier, what are the different stem requirements? What are the different versions of the mixes? Do you need an LCR or do you need an LRC? Like, those are two different outputs, right? So you have to basically tell them, here's all the different deliverables, so that they know, okay, it's going to be X dollars. And that includes all of this, rather than, yeah, I'll give you a 5.1 mix. And then you're like, well, I need this. Well, that's going to cost extra. Well, we need this. Well, our facility isn't set up to do that, so you're going to need to take it somewhere else. Like, that could really bite you in the butt. In the minute or the moment where you should be delivering, you're saying, hey, I need another month to figure this out. And it's not a good look. So you're saving yourself a ton of heartache if you do it up front.
I've found with our distributors that this is something that they go through. Your distributors worked with a variety of filmmakers and films, and they know how to help gather these deliverables. They need these so that they can do their job of getting the film out there to different networks and channels. And so it's nice to have a good contact, and I'd be right up front with, I'm very upfront and open with distributors. Like when they're saying, hey, we need this item, I say, oh, great, I'm unfamiliar with that, or I haven't delivered that in the past. Can you tell me what that is, or who can I talk to in order to get that item?
Yeah.
That would not be the first time that they've heard that question. So be open. Don't try to fake anything. You just you're on their team and they're on your team, and you're working together to get the movie out there.
None of this is meant to scare you into like, oh, movie making is harder than I was thinking, but it should help you kind of rise to that standard of, oh, this is what professional filmmakers do. And they talk about and they think about and they prepare for the deliverables that they're required to send off when the movie's done.
which brings us to the next point, which is
I
the
don't know what
legal.
these points are.
I
Am I
know
really teeing you up that well?
you're segueing very well, or whatever, but it's legal documents.
Hey,
Uh, and these are things that you'll need to, that any distributor, your distributor is not going to touch your film unless you can show proper legal documents, and that's including the chain of title and the E&O insurance and the music licenses, actor and crew agreements, and these all need to be cleared and legally aligned so that the distributor is not taking a risk, undue risk in releasing your movie.
yeah. I want to double click, as they say, on chain of title, because that's a
Yeah, deep.
term that people sometimes don't know what it means. And it's basically like, if you think of a title of a car, it just shows who legally owns it, right? So show us the chain, show us the series of how the ownership of this story or this music or these trademarks or these property rights, whatever it is, transferred to you. Like, where's the document that says, I was the owner of this thing, and now it's transferred to the company that owns it currently. And so it's a collection of documents that just prove that you own the film, that you own the rights. So the rights to the script, the rights to the story, the rights to enter any like literary material. If it's based off of an article or a book or a play, that you have that. Rights to music. You need to show that like you have a license and it's signed and you have the ability to put this movie in your theater, in your movie, sorry, put this music in your movie and make money off the movie. Because if you don't, they're going to come after you, right? The same way that YouTube will flag music that isn't yours or imagery that isn't yours, if you don't have a chain of title and can prove ownership or a license, they'll just take all of the revenue, the ad revenue from it, and divert it to the people who own it. So that's what YouTube does. In film, they'll just say, oh, we can't take this until you get that agreement. I was just reading the other day, 2 days ago, about Midas Man, this movie about the fifth Beatle, like the manager or the engineer, whoever it was that was involved with the Beatles, and this history of that movie and how how bad a look it is, the way that they tried to pull that movie together. And to the very end, like to the time that the movie was released, they couldn't get certain rights to Beatles songs, which are kind of required if you're making like a Beatles biopic. Like, and they kept saying, yeah, we got it. Yeah, we're talking with Apple. Yeah, we got this thing. Yeah, we're in the room. Yeah, we're at the last leg. And they just basically kept lying to investors to say, yeah, we got it. And then it turns out they never got it. And so
Yeah.
that's why chain of title is important. It protects you as the filmmaker, it protects the distributor, and it makes sure that everyone involved is like very fairly aware of who owns the rights and what's going to happen with those rights.
Again, we're not lawyers. We don't. So definitely, if there's
Not legal
questions,
advice.
so yeah, don't. This, but this podcast is based on our experience. In my experience, you know, I questioned it. I'm like, what do you mean? What rights do I need? I mean, I came up with the story, and I'm writing this script, and so what do you mean chain of title? Like, well, how is that? So for movies where it was this kind of independent thing, I mean, every movie is made under some sort of LLC, right? If you're uh, raising money and putting it in your film company or whatever it is to make your movie, then that LLC needs to own the script. So if I've written a script and I own the LLC, then I, Garrett Batty, need to sign the rights of the script with a document over to the LLC so that the LLC can make the movie.
Yep.
And that's the way it is for any writer or writer for hire or writer for work. So the LLC needs to own the rights to the script, the performances, the work that the crew has done, and the music clearances and stock footage and everything like that.
Yeah. Do
Again,
you
build the
have
folder.
yeah.
You build a legal folder, put everything in there like E&O, da, 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 make it a green circle when you've put the document in.
Yeah. That's a really, really brilliant way to do it. Is a script clearance on the list of 10 things that you're talking about today, or is this a good time to talk about a script clearance?
No, let's bring up script clearance. That needs to happen.
And this is something that once your script is pretty locked, like you don't want to do it on an early draft because something might be added later or something might change. So generally, you're going to do this off of your shooting script. But there are companies that you can send your script to get a script clearance. And what they're doing is they're essentially like going over it from a legal aspect to say, are you using any names or imagery or physical things in your movie that someone else owns the rights to, right? So if your movie is totally based on and going to Mars and you're using Starlink throughout your entire movie, you're going to need the rights to be able to do that, right? Because you don't own Starlink, and that's a name that's a trademarked, registered company and name, and you can't just use it. Same with like Pepsi and Coke. Same with phone brands. Same. That's why you see a lot of TV shows and movies that'll just put like a sticker on the back of a Dell computer or an Apple laptop. Like, you know, it's an Apple laptop, but there's no logo and they don't have a trademark over black keys and a gray, laptop case. And so as long as you're not using the logo, you're clear. And so a script clearance is an important step in that chain of title process that's going to be asked for to say, yes, we've run this through a script clearance and we are good. We're not using anything that someone could claim is their intellectual property or their copyright or their trademark. And so we are free to use it. Otherwise, if it does pop up that you have something in the script, you can either change it, right? We talked about baseball names, team names inside Faith of Angels. That was flagged, but then it was flagged as like, you're good because of the way you're using it, right? We're not disparaging it. We're not using it as a key plot point. It's just a passing thing. It's like, yeah, you're good. But they'll catch everything to make sure that if you need a clearance, then you're going to go get the rights to that. You're going to add that to your chain of title. And otherwise, you're in the clear. So you want to do that before you go film the movie, because if you film something and then it turns out you can't use it or without paying a licensing fee, well, you might shoot yourself in your foot because you can't go back and film that scene again.
You're paying for a reshoot or a VFX to paint out whatever logo or item that you couldn't use. And it's a tedious process, but do it up front, get that script clearance, and then your distributor will have no questions. I mean, yes, here's the script clearance, here's our movie, and that's very helpful. Okay, another item, number 5, deliverable that is tedious and something you got to pay attention to: subtitles and closed captions. It's pretty straightforward as far as you just sending your film to a service that will do that, and making sure that you just keep track of those files. The biggest things that can get cause issues is if your time code in your movie changes or slides, or say a distributor wants to throw on their logo at the beginning. Well, all of your captions are timed to the movie, and so that can throw things off. So you want to make sure and pay attention to make sure that everything is synced correctly and is free of errors. Also, in creating subtitles and captions, when you're sending your movie off to a house to do that, usually they are not familiar with your character names and some of the vernacular that your film might contain, and so it's good to send your script with them to make sure that that's as correct as possible. And then when you get that file back, do your own QC. Make sure that the person hearing this dialogue and interpreting it is has put it in correctly.
Yeah. No notes.
Pretty straightforward. Those are simple little files that can just be added to your deliverables. We've talked a little bit about this next one on this podcast, but trailer and key art. You want to make sure that you deliver a high quality, attention-grabbing trailer, both for theatrical and social media, and then your key art, which is your poster, and make sure that all aligns with your marketing strategy.
Yeah. Here's a thought or a question for you, just as a quick aside. It's weird to me that every single entity that's screening your movie, distributing your movie, sharing your movie, wants their own clean version of the trailer to put on, whether it's their YouTube channel or inside their app. And I don't know why that bothers me. Like, we made it. It's our trailer. Why do you want a clean copy? Because it feels like then they're getting the benefit of the views or the data or all that stuff, and then we don't have any access to it, right? So do you have any thoughts on that, or am I just being whiny?
To build, you're talking about like sending out a trailer that they can tag and logo, or you mean that they put on their
Yeah,
own YouTube?
that they can then they have a clean version. They have a downloaded clean version that's just like an MP4 file or whatever. It's not a link to a YouTube or a Vimeo or anything. So they can put it wherever they want. They can put it on their own website, their own YouTube. They could say, this is a movie. Angel Studios has this movie now. It's like, well, I don't know. Maybe it's just a weird personal glitch of mine that's like, but it's your movie. It's Garrett's movie. Why isn't it on, why aren't they just pointing people to the trailer that already exists online that you uploaded when you first put it online? But then our distributor took one, and then Megaplex has their own, and then Cinemark has their own inside their apps, and it's just like I don't know. It doesn't
Yeah,
necessarily bother me. It's just a thing that I notice.
yeah. Yeah, no, it's interesting. And I mean, I think it goes to, again, back to like building an audience. If I'm going to go see a Steven Spielberg movie, I'm not going to his webpage to watch the trailer, right? It's going to the distributor's webpage. And plus, there's just this flood of, like different YouTube channels, Movie Web and IMDb and whatever it is. And so the distributor wants to be able to just put those. I think Faith of Angels, we paid to put it on 200 film related sites. And that would be a trailer going up to their own channel or whatever it is. I mean, at the end of the day, yes, if it promotes the movie, great. Yeah, it is tough because it doesn't turn it back to the audience that we're trying to build. But hopefully, it goes beyond our little channel and just reaches all of the different silos that are out there.
Yeah.
I hear you though. One of the things that in addition to that is they want usually textless versions of the trailer, both textless for key art and the trailer. So Faith of Angels has starring whatever Cameron Arnett and John Michael Finley in the trailer, and then also it says they searched for hope, they found a miracle. Those are like key marketing taglines. So we deliver a trailer completely textless, and it's like it's scary because it's like, oh well, they could change it or whatever it is. But a lot of that is for translation for foreign
Right.
distribution, and yeah, they'll put their own tags and dates on it and things like that. So at that point, I guess you have to accept that this movie is now bigger than our edit bay.
Yeah. I guess it's a good problem to have.
Yeah, yeah, right. If they say we don't want your trailer, then you yeah,
Bigger problem.
careful because they'll probably bill you for making their own trailer.
Yeah.
No, and that is an element. I've had distributors that haven't requested key art, and then the plan is like they'll create their own key art, and I usually get billed for it. And say, no, this is the key art. Here's what it is. Here's a textless version, so you can put your own logo on it, but this is the key art.
Yeah.
And you work with them. Okay, next one, metadata and documentation. And this one is a little bit newer, with I guess it's all relative, but we're going to provide a comprehensive metadata sheet. This includes the cast and crew credits, synopsis, technical details, and genre tags. Back one of my first jobs in LA, we were creating write-ups for a film was releasing, and we'd have to do like a 500 word synopsis, and then a 250 word synopsis, and then a 100 word synopsis. And and if you didn't do that, then your distributor, whatever it is, they're coming up with their own thing, and your messaging gets all muddled. And somebody might interpret your film as a family comedy, and someone might maybe only call it a comedy, and so it's a very different. So you have most distributors will send you their own metadata sheet that has 30 questions on what your film is, including genre and credits and everything like that. Um, and if you just keep a good Google Doc with all of those things, copy and paste them into each distributor sheet, it's the same information that you're copying and pasting into IMDb when you're creating that. Then your metadata stays the same, the running time stays the same, the title of the movie stays the same, and everybody's on the same page.
Yeah. Brilliant. I love it.
With that documentation, another part of that documentation is a cue sheet. detailing all the music used in the film.
Yes.
And that's essential for distribution, especially when royalties are involved. Darren, you probably have done a few cue sheets in your day.
Oh, yes. And I mean, you get one number wrong and you got to resubmit it. Like it's it's pretty specific because they need to know where are those cues happening and how much usage is there. And there's so much that goes into those. Sometimes it does feel tedious. It feels like, gosh, why are we doing this? It just feels like busy work. And then you realize, oh no, in the moment that you actually need it, it's a really good thing that you have it.
A lot of times your music supervisor will help put that together, or your composer. I know that for Faith of Angels, we used some pre-recorded tracks and composed music. So I was able to go to Rob Elliott, our composer, who's just amazing, and say, Rob, we need a cue sheet for all of your tracks, and he knows where they start and stop. And your composer is going to have a template cue sheet. So when he sends that over, I can add the drop tracks that we used, and it's worth doing. And now, I mean, I still get royalty checks from music that Rob did for a movie, 3 movies ago. The movie's playing on some broadcast channel in Europe, and at the end of the quarter, I get a little check from royalties that I split with Rob. So it's kind of fun as part of it's worth doing.
Yeah.
Okay, we got 3 more, 8, 9, and 10. 8 is the delivery timeline. You want to make sure that that you stick to the delivery schedule that's set up by the distributor, and this will help avoid any delays in the release. We work hard and make sure that delivery schedule is realistic. But if you've done this stuff during pre-production and development, then you shouldn't have any delays in gathering up your deliverables and getting it to the distributor. You do want to build a buffer because there are some unforeseen things. Your QC is going to get kicked back, or um, make sure that your licenses are in place or whatever. One of the things that most distributors require is a copyright, and that takes forever. Both on the script and the film. So once you finish the script and lock the script, send it into the copyright office, because 6 to 12 weeks later you'll get an email back that says, here's your copyright. Same thing with the finished film. You got to copy that up, send it up to the copyright office, and wait and wait and wait for them to reply to you.
Yep. Yeah, one especially, these are other things that you need to think about before you go into production, because if you're trying to hit a delivery deadline of December 25th to release by Christmas, you got to backtrack that and kind of reverse engineer. Oh, we're going to need 12 weeks for this. We're going to need this many weeks for post, this many weeks for QC, this many weeks for these things. Like, it's not something that you turn around in a week, as you can attest to, because you've been working on this for weeks and weeks and weeks now. It's something that takes a lot of time, especially if you're doing it all on your own. And so you got to budget for that time-wise as well as financially, to make sure that you can hit the deadline. Because if you start filming in August, the idea that you're going to release in theaters is unrealistic, right? We all kind of know that, but then maybe we're not thinking about all the ancillary things that come along with making a movie, which is the post-production and then all the deliverables as well.
And it's important to do. And fortunately, it's only it's usually a one-time thing. So you gather it up, you keep it all on your hard drive, and then as a distributor requests it, you just copy those items over to a new drive and send it off, or upload it via Aspera or Google Drive or FTP or whatever it is, and you send it off to the distributor, and you keep your deliverables drive. So even a movie I made back in 2009, we've got I'm working to deliver that, because a distributor wants it for its catalog, and I just pulled up the hard drive and I'm sending off the elements and explaining why it's so low res. It was 2009.
Yeah,
they didn't have really 4K stuff back
4K
then.
wasn't a thing.
Yeah, no, I think we shot this movie on HDV, but at any rate. Okay, and that is the next thing: storage and backup. Distributors, they require deliverables to be uploaded via secure platforms, Aspera or Google Drive. So make sure you've got a reliable internet so that you can store, and upload these very large files. I did just do one. I've got gigabit Ethernet, and it like took about 36 hours, I think, to upload, because it's about a 700 gig file, just the movie, once you're at ProRes 4K or 444. Anyway, it's kind of technical stuff, but give yourself plenty of time. Sometimes it's easier to just ship a drive out, and it'll be there faster than the upload finishes. But then make sure you maintain that backup copy of all deliverables in case there's a lost hard drive or technical issues or whatever. So you just have a mirror drive, and if the deliverable, the tech at the distributor will call and say, "Hey, we didn't get this file," and you can look and say, "Oh no, it's right here on your drive," or "Oh, it's right here on my drive. I can send it over."
Yeah. Do you have a process in place for checking on those drives that are sitting collecting dust on a shelf of yours? Like I would get so nervous about a 12 or 15 or 16-year-old drive and saying that the only copy I have is on this hard drive from 15 years ago. I'm not saying that's what you're doing, but like, what's your process for ensuring that there's always a reliable copy available?
Great question. And again, there are probably post houses and QC houses that would know how to do this much better than I do. But yes, I mean, I'll cycle my drives every once in a while. As I'm doing this deliverables for this movie that's 15 years old, um, I'm bringing all the assets onto a new drive, and say, hey, for $200, I can get it. 15 years ago, my whatever 4 terabyte drive is this massive one. Now for $200, I can get a 4 terabyte, quick thumb drive almost, right? Yeah.
It's a credit card. I mean, literally,
So it's
like
good to just kind
a
of
business
transfer those
card,
assets.
and there's that. Like, it's the same thing. It's crazy. It's a 4 terabyte drive for $125. Like,
Yeah.
what?
But and I do. I've got a. I'll show this right here. So, well, I guess this is a podcast, but I have a hard drive that just I keep a label on it. Says, look, this is for, this is the Saratov approach deliverable drive, right? And so if somebody, once my contract runs out and I go with another distributor or whatever it is, take this drive, copy it over, and send it to them or whatever. But I keep it updated. So each film has a deliverables drive.
I haven't been keeping up on technology or anything, so apologies for this aside. But like a solid state drive, is that more better than an old, spin up drive that has like an RPM and stuff, like a 7200 speed drive? Like, are solid state kind of more robust and more? Is this going to be better in 10 years than the equivalent of a typical hard drive?
In my opinion, yes. My experience, yes. I think everything's kind of shifting to that. Um, Again, don't talk to a lawyer for legal help and talk to a technician for drive help. But so far in my career, everything has worked well. Where I've tried to keep up on the technical side of things as far as drives and computers and aspect ratios, and just kind of keep things up to date. I don't. You don't need to save. I don't save. All of my edit files and the renders and things like that. At some point the picture is locked, the movie is done, and nobody's ever going to ask you for the takes you didn't use in the movie.
Right.
So, those drives I don't spin up and back up. But fortunately, drives are cheap, right? It's easy to have multiple backups, and so I keep multiple backups, and then I keep a Google Doc of where everything is on which drive.
Nice. Very cool.
Okay, the final one, number 10, here we go, is cost implications. Preparing deliverables, it can be expensive, right? Particularly when it comes to DCP creation or QC, legal clearances. Like anytime you're involving other professionals and service providers, they are billing you for those. I've spent the past 2 weeks on these two, deliverables for, archiving Carpenter and delivering Faith of Angels and things like that. And even that is time intensive and labor and, has a cost to it. So just factor these costs into your production budget. Um, Also, when you look at that deliverable list from that distributor, feel free to negotiate with the distributor. Like if any of the requirements seem unnecessary or overly costly for your film's scope, for the first movie that we shot on DV, I think I told the distributors, like, we don't have a lab. We're not using a lab. I mean, if we'll QC the movie, but there's no place that they're going to be able to call and get all of the M&E and stereo stems or whatever it is. It's just kind of, this is the movie. This is what we have,
Mm-hmm.
um, and that's okay. That was the scope of that movie.
Yeah, and I think that just speaks to your prowess as a producer to say, well, this is not going to happen. Like, or there's even times where you can pass along some things to the distributor who's asking for it and say, well, look, you're the only one asking for this, and we've got 4 other people that we're delivering to. We'd love for you, we'd love for you. You say it kindly, right? You don't, you don't be mean, but you say, look,
Yeah,
you're going to need to cover the cost of that because we can't do it. We are out of budget. No one else is asking for this. And so if you need it, then it's on you. And I've seen them do that. So
yeah. Most agreeable. They are agreeable to that. I mean, I had a distributor cover E&O insurance once because I couldn't have it. The movie wasn't even planned for that. We had production insurance, and then we thought, oh, we didn't even know what that was, and
yeah.
so they put it on their plan. And obviously, they'll take it out of any royalties or residuals, but it was helpful to, it felt like we had a partner that was interested in the film and not just um, figuring out, taking advantage of a first time filmmaker.
Yeah. And with that one specifically, there's a lot of places that will tell you they can't even insure a movie unless it's over $1 million or $2 million. They'll just say,
Yeah,
we don't do that. But you look at your deliverables and it says, well, there's a conversation you can have before you start filming, before your budget is locked, to say, what are we doing with E&O? Like, hey, do we really need this? Are you guys covering it? Are we covering it? Okay, well, who can we work with who will cover it? Because I've talked to 3 people and none of them do movies under $1 million, right?
yeah,
That's again, like you've talked about, you're just treating people as partners to say, okay, this is an outcome that has to happen. How do we get it done? And that's filmmaking in a nutshell. Like
that's every day of filmmaking.
every day. So get used to that. And those conversations, if they're uncomfortable for you, just kind of shift to, hey, I'm talking to partners, not enemies and competitors here. Like we're all in this to have a successful outcome. We all want this to be massively successful and profitable so we can all keep making more movies. How do we do this together? What's the best way to do this? And yeah, I've always found that those distributors will work with you because if they've already said we want this movie, subtext is we're going to help get it to the point where we can actually distribute it, or else what's the point? So use them and rely on them and work with them.
Darren, that's our list. Those are 10 items. Feel free to, share with us other things that we may have missed or what your experiences have been. As an independent filmmaker, these are things that we have to be responsible for, and I think our films are better for it.
Yeah, 100%. That's a good list, man. Thanks for putting that together. This is going to be a super valuable resource for filmmakers that I know I'm going to be pointing to over and over again and maybe even referring back to, because as we start producing movies, I'm going to not be doing this stuff. Like that's not the best use of my time as the producer / executive producer. So that needs to be part of the conversation with the post supervisor and the music supervisor and the lawyer and all these things to say, look, I want you to handle all this stuff. Like I'll verify that it's there, but like I can't spend the time going and hunting it down. Like it's your job. So do your job all the way through, and then you're responsible for getting those things into the deliverables folder. And if, that's how I'm kind of thinking about it from where I'm standing and approaching 2025 as like more of an executive producer and less of a boots on the ground responsible for every aspect of the film producer. It's like, okay, well, those are conversations I need to have with the producer and with the team to say, you guys are responsible for this. So if there's not a plan in place, you should think about it now before we greenlight this movie.
And it may seem like overkill, but I can tell you, I've done several, 8 movies, and there is not one that I've released that has not resulted in some sort of, I don't want to say lawsuit, but certainly emails or whatever, where there have been reasons that the paperwork and all of the rights agreements and things like that have been in place, have been questioned, and so it's not overkill. It's been very, very helpful, and it solves a lot of, it stops a lot of battles before they start, to be able to say, yeah, here's our agreements, or here's our rights,
Yeah.
or here's the contract.
There are certainly things within our industry that I feel could benefit from changing, but there's also things that have been around for 120 years that like they're there for a reason, and there's a reason everybody does them the same way, because it's a system that hasn't yet been improved upon, or else we would do it that way. And so I think the deliverables and chain of title and all those things have a long history of being very essential in our industry. And so you got to take it seriously, got to take responsibility for it, and ensure that you've got it handled. That's just part of being a good producer, a good filmmaker.
Okay, I agree. Okay, let's shift gears. We're going to wrap up. This has been an amazing episode. Should we cover box office real quick? We're recording this on Sundance Eve. Sundance Film Festival starts this week, so January is always such an interesting time for the box office because there's just not a lot coming out, and we're seeing that with our number one movie again is Mufasa, the fifth week in theaters, and it's the number one movie with only $15 million on the weekend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, estimated 15.5 mil, which is super low, one of the lowest like number ones that we've seen. And then the box office is 85. So it was like a good weekend. The highest of January, except for January 3 through 5, was 98 million. So the second highest of the month. But yeah, it's interesting. Only two releases in the top 10, two new releases in the top 10. The 10th place, Baby Girl, almost $2.5 million to be the 10th spot. Again, it just speaks to, if you want to have the best chance possible to get into the top 10 with your indie film on a limited release, do it on a big weekend, like a Wicked or a Deadpool or a Inside Out 2. Like, find those and target those. The dates are probably already posted online, and say, we're doing it. We're releasing that week. And only like 3 other new releases. And then we have Sing Sing doing a 2025 re-release, which is for the awards. Right.
Which is kind of fun. I mean, you look at a lot of these movies, and studios are doing their awards campaigns, everything from Sing Sing to, I mean, you look at the top, 6 through 10, you've got Nosferatu, Complete Unknown, Wicked, Baby Girl, Brutalist. Those are all awards contenders. Gladiator 2, September 5. Wild Robot is even in, sticking around. So these are all films that you're going to see nominated in the next couple of weeks. Actually, Thursday is a announcement for Oscars.
Mm-hmm. The last little note that I'm just kind of paying attention to here is that there's a handful of movies that have been out for more than 3 months, right? Conclave 13 weeks, Anora 14 weeks, Substance 18 weeks, The Wild Robot 17 weeks. These are movies that are still playing. Wild Robot's still over 1,000 theaters. The Substance is still on 481, Anora 536. Like, some of that is because of awards that they may have bumped it, but still, like, that's crazy staying power, especially to open up in like September, October, and then hang on through November, December. Like, it's just so cool to see that. And they're still making good money, like Wild Robot still made $400 per theater. Conclave $335. Like, some of these, A Real Pain, 12 weeks in, they're still on 55 theaters and 1,400 per screen average. Like, that's, for an indie film, you'd want that for your opening weekend, right? Like, the fact that they're 10 weeks in, 12 weeks in is like amazing. So, man, a couple of these films are worth kind of diving into and going, well, what was it that allowed them that kind of staying power, 3, even 4 months of time? I mean, Substance, 18 weeks is like, that's a quarter. That's a quarter of the year or more. Third of the year. Yeah. I don't know. Don't do public math, folks.
Yeah.
But yeah, awesome.
I think it is. I think it's definitely a good time for moviegoers because lots of awards-worthy content is out there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, man. I think is that our episode?
I believe so. We should get some thumbs up from the audience. How are you guys feeling? Was that a good episode? let us know. Like, go over, do the thing that all the podcasts say, and like go over to wherever you listen to it and leave us a rating and review and leave a comment. And if you have questions that you'd like us to answer or topics you'd like us to discuss on the show, just head over to 3coinpro.com/podcast. And there's a way to put your questions in there and subscribe to the email list and be a part of the community of filmmakers we're building here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for sharing it. It's a good one. See you, Garrett.
Thanks, Darren.
Thanks, man. Thank you for listening to this episode of Truly Independent. To join us on the journey, be notified, and ask us questions about today's episode, head over to 3coinpro.com/podcast and put in your name and an email address. If you're a fan of the show, please leave us a review on your favorite podcast app and be sure to share this. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week. Our intro and outro music is Election Time by Kjartan Abel.